Brianka J. I'm coming to you from my office, and before we get started, you know what to do. Go ahead, like, comment, or subscribe if you're digging the vibes of this video, and make sure you check out my website, www.briankaj.com, where I give you all things me. So my booktube is linked there, as well as my merch, as well as my picture book, and some blogs and things of that nature. So go check it out, get to know your girl, and yeah, leave a comment or something. Let me know how you feel. Today I'm going to be talking about Beloved by Toni Morrison. This book is actually one of the few books, or maybe the only book by a black woman that's in the American literary canon. And I'm not gonna lie to y'all, I've been avoiding reading this book for a very long time. I remember when I was a little girl, Beloved came on, and the first scene scared the living shit out of me, and I never ever watched the movie. And when I got to college, even though it was assigned, I never read the book. Didn't. Until now, because we have to face our fears. And you know what? Yeah, I see why I was afraid. This is basically a gothic novel. Ain't nobody tell me nothing. We have a haunted house, a ghost baby, and some like sad, shame, secret keeping people. A gothic novel written all over this. Why ain't nobody say that to me? Yeah, so those are some of the things. We have the theme of loss, the theme of all things are alive. This mixing of the spirit life and the reality is going on in here. We have a budding romance occurring in here. We have the impact of slavery and the loss. And it's a lot of good things happening in this work so far. So my plan is to come to you pretty much every time I get to a milestone in the work, 4 different milestones. So every quarter of the way through, I'll come to you and talk about what I've learned so far and how things are going. And then the last one, I'll do a full literary analysis as I typically do. So if you guys like that idea, I like it too. It'll keep me accountable because y'all know I've been slacking on my reading. Sorry about that. So these first 50 pages really just kind of set the scene for us as you would assume it to do. So if you read the foreword, you would know that this book is actually based on a true story. Morrison found a newspaper clipping, and it summarized the story of Margaret Garner, who was a young mother that escaped slavery and was arrested for killing one of her children rather than let them be returned to the owner's plantation. And so Morrison characterizes the heroine of this work to represent the unapologetic acceptance of shame and terror, assume the consequences of choosing infanticide, and claiming her own freedom. So that's pretty much what the book is going to be about here, and that's pretty much a good character representation of Sethe, who is the mother here. She has one daughter named Denver who's still alive and living with her in the house. And then so far we also meet this guy she knows from slavery called Paul D, who is going to also make his home in the house. And of course, the haint baby, the ghost baby, is in the house. And so we got all that going on. So they do give us an explanation of why they call the book Beloved in the very first couple pages. So on page 5, they talk about why the book, why Beloved, and it's basically because she didn't have enough money to afford the letters dearly. So they just went with Beloved because she could only afford so many letters on the headstone because she was so poor. And so she tried to just give her baby one last thing. And so they talk about the ghost in the house and why there's a ghost in the house as well on page 5. And the reason, they say, she had to live out her years in a house palsied by the baby's fury at having his throat cut. So we know that some reason, for whatever reason, she cut the baby's throat at some point to kind of save her or him or whatever. We know that she has these scars from being whipped. She has these lashes that make her back look like a tree. And they describe her as having beautiful hair, but these very dead eyes. Like she's seen too much. Let's see. And it made her think, man, that's just a good quote, but I'll come back to that another time. So, aside of that, we talk about the house. The house is like, they say the house has this really powerful spell to where nobody ever visits them. And even her 2 sons get up one day and just kind of leave, like they can't deal with it. And they say when you step inside, it's like you smack into a pool of pulsing red light. And you receive like this deep, heavy grief and sadness every time you walk into the house. And they talk about, this just house, and it doesn't stop feeling that way until Paul D shows up one day. The house kind of tries to shake and scare Paul D out, and he kind of fights his way in, and then the Hank never shows up. At least not after that, from what I've read so far. And he comes in, he kind of caters to Sethe, who's our heroine, and she loves him more in a brotherly way. Though they're romantic, it's kind of brotherly. She enjoys his presence. And she even said there was something blessed in his manner, right? And she said that she kind of put her responsibility in her hands, and she feels really good. I think that could be something good for Sethe. Like, from what I know about her, she's been forced to be very independent, and she's been forced to carry on all this grief by herself. And so now that she's dealing with Paul D, she said it's like being with a man. She described it this way: they encourage you to put some of your weight in their hands, and as soon as you feel how light and lovely that was, they study your scars and tribulations, after which they did what he had done, ran her children out and tore up the house. And so that's kind of how she's thinking of men, or how she was taught to think of men. And she's kind of like, a man ain't nothing but a man, and just kind of think of it like that way. And she got that mentality because of the impact of slavery and what it had on them. And what it ended up making them feel was that they couldn't really count on anyone, and you couldn't really love anyone because they were going to be leaving soon. And so they kind of built up this wall between them and attachment. And it even says here, it made sense because in all of life, men and women were moved around like checkers. Anybody they knew, let alone loved, who hadn't run off or been hanged, got rented out, loaned out, bought up, brought back, stored up, mortgaged, won, stolen, or seized. And what they call the nastiness of life was the shock they received upon learning that nobody stopped playing checkers just because the pieces included their own children. And so they taught themselves to not grow attached to someone and allow their heart to kind of stand distant from them, so that they could be able to carry on without feeling like a great sense of loss or anything like that. So that's what they did. They just kind of started learning how to close off their emotions and just pretend like it never happened. Hold it up, repress it. And so this goes on to the point that Sethe never actually knows her own mother. And it says she kind of saw her as a woman out there in the field. The shape shifted and became something other. Some unchained, demanding other whose feet knew her pulse better than she did. Just like the one in her own stomach. And so we know that Sethe knew her mother as a field hand, but never had a relationship with her mother, which makes it difficult for her, I'm sure, to be a mother and not have known motherhood herself. We also have these themes of all things continue to stay alive, right? They say it's going to hurt. Anything dead coming back to life hurts. And they also talk about time and the re-remembering of things, and how that even if a place were to burn down and be gone, it stays. It stays in the world. You can still feel the energy of a place. You can still feel the energy that was left behind in a place no matter the time. It's still there waiting. And then so her daughter says, well, if it's still there waiting, that means nothing ever dies. And Sethe says nothing ever does. And so that's going to be a really interesting thing that I want to see Morrison really continue to flesh out, this idea of all things are living, and this bridge between the afterlife and the reality of today is going to be really interesting to me. And I want to see what she's going to do with this ghost and how that's going to be. But you know, she also softens it out. Sethe is having her little love story here. She's falling in love with Paul D. She's kind of anxious right now. She says, would it be all right? Would it be all right to go ahead and go ahead and count on something? So we got Sethe falling in love. And so that's going to be interesting. And one thing I can say that I feel after reading just a little I've read so far, how they talk about dancing and rhythm and remembering. It goes back to Tanaise Coates, the water dancer. Such a talented writer. I love when I can pick up the symbolic illusions too. And I love that he must have read this in order to prepare himself for the great work that he produced. And so I'm really excited to see where this goes. And I hope you guys follow me as I continue to read. I have some other books I'm working on as well. I'm reading The Marathon Don't Stop by Robert Kenner that focuses on the life of Nipsey Hussle. I'm reading Invisible Woman, which talks about women in the workforce. I don't know who it's by, but I'll tell you guys. Like, I'll drop it in the description box. And I'm also reading The Revisionist. I haven't really started that, but I do have it. It's in queue. You know, it's in queue. Back reading again, guys. I'm really excited. I know I've been slacking on y'all, but I'm back reading again. And it feels good. It's helping me with my little anxiety because I'm waiting on some news, and a watch pot don't boil, right? So I'm waiting for good news, and to keep myself sane, I'm reading, and I'm going to keep doing that. And yeah, but if you have any video requests or any ideas you want me to go over, link it in the description box. If you got a writing prompt from your teacher about this particular book, tell me in the description box, and maybe we can work on getting you that A that you actually deserve. Let me know, and I'll be back with you shortly. That was so lame. She's corny. Corny. I'm sorry. Bye, y'all. I'm making an ass of myself. I'm gonna take a shower and take my ass to sleep, clearly. Have a good night.
My name is Levi. My nanny read a book about me. Buy the book. Please.
Give
Buy my nanny book. I'll punch your face.